My beloved child. Pause for a moment, because sometimes the quietest moments carry the loudest answers. There are seasons in life when nothing seems to change on the outside, yet everything is shifting beneath the surface. Today, I want to tell you a story about one of those moments, a moment so gentle that many people would overlook it, yet so powerful that it changes two hearts forever. There was a time when your name was remembered with uncertainty. Not because you lacked kindness. Not because you lacked love. But because the people around you could only see the chapter you were surviving, not the person you were becoming. They judged your silence without understanding your battles. They noticed your waiting without realizing how much strength it took to remain patient. They saw your ordinary days but never witnessed the extraordinary courage hidden inside them. Yet somewhere, far beyond what your eyes could see, another heart was slowly beginning to understand. The one you call your soulmate had been carrying questions for a long time. Questions they could never fully answer. Every time they tried to move forward, something quietly reminded them of your kindness. Every time they believed they had forgotten you, a memory appeared without invitation. It was never loud. It never demanded attention. It simply arrived, again and again, until ignoring it became impossible. Have you ever wondered why certain connections refuse to disappear? Why some people continue to cross your thoughts even after weeks, months, or even years? Sometimes the answer is not found in coincidence. Sometimes it is found in understanding that truth has its own perfect timing. Your soulmate did not suddenly wake up with all the answers. Realization arrived slowly, like sunrise replacing darkness one gentle ray at a time. At first, they remembered the conversations they once dismissed too quickly. Then they remembered the patience you showed when nobody else noticed. After that came the moments when you chose kindness instead of pride, peace instead of argument, hope instead of giving up. Piece by piece, memory became clarity. And clarity became realization. For the first time, they stopped asking, "Why are they different?" Instead, they began asking, "How did I fail to see who they truly were?" That single question changed everything. People often expect life-changing moments to arrive with dramatic signs, but the greatest transformations usually begin inside the heart. No applause. No announcement. Only quiet understanding. While the world continued moving as usual, your soulmate experienced something they could not explain. Every old assumption started falling apart. Every misunderstanding slowly lost its power. Every opinion formed by fear or confusion became weaker than the truth standing before them. They realized your greatest quality was never your appearance, your achievements, or your words. It was your heart. The heart that continued believing when circumstances became difficult. The heart that continued caring without demanding recognition. The heart that quietly chose compassion over bitterness. That realization could not be undone. Sometimes people recognize value only after they stop listening to noise. The opinions of others become silent. The distractions lose their influence. The expectations disappear. And finally, truth speaks. Your soulmate reached that place. They began replaying moments they once ignored. They remembered your gentle encouragement. They remembered your honesty. They remembered the peace they felt whenever your presence entered their life. For so long, they believed those moments were ordinary. Now they understood they were extraordinary. Imagine standing before a beautiful mountain while looking only at the ground beneath your feet. The mountain was always there. You simply never looked up. That is what happened inside their heart. They finally looked up. They finally saw. Not a perfect person. Not someone without flaws. But someone real. Someone genuine. Someone whose light never depended on applause. Someone whose value remained constant even when unnoticed. As this understanding grew stronger, another emotion quietly followed. Gratitude. They became grateful for every conversation they almost forgot. Grateful for every lesson your presence unknowingly taught them. Grateful that life had not completely erased the connection between you. Because sometimes distance does not destroy meaning. Sometimes distance reveals it. If you have ever questioned your worth because others misunderstood you, remember this story. The right understanding rarely arrives early. Truth often takes the longer road. But when it arrives, it stays. Your soulmate's realization was not built on excitement. It was built on truth. Truth does not fade overnight. Truth becomes stronger every single day. There are moments in life when people suddenly recognize the difference between temporary attention and lasting character. Attention disappears. Character remains. Your soulmate finally discovered that difference. They realized the strongest people are not always the loudest. Sometimes they are the quiet souls who continue choosing hope even when nobody notices. Sometimes they are the people who continue believing in goodness while surrounded by disappointment. Sometimes they are people exactly like you. As this realization continued growing, peace slowly replaced confusion. Questions became answers. Doubt became confidence. Distance became understanding. The story was changing, not because fate suddenly appeared, but because truth had finally reached the heart that needed to hear it. And perhaps this is the reminder someone listening today needed as well. Never assume your kindness has gone unseen. Never assume your patience has been forgotten. Never assume your genuine heart carries no value. The people meant to understand you may not recognize your worth immediately. But recognition has its own perfect season. Your soulmate has finally begun seeing what was always there. Not an illusion. Not a dream. But the real person behind every quiet sacrifice, every hopeful prayer, every act of compassion, and every moment of unwavering faith. The greatest news is not that someone suddenly changed. The greatest news is that truth finally found its way into a searching heart. And once truth is welcomed, nothing looks the same again. This is only the beginning of the story. There is still another chapter waiting to unfold, because realization is only the first step. What follows next has the power to transform everything they believed about you, and perhaps everything you believed about yourself. A quiet truth is about to unfold, and it may change the way you see this entire story. What happened after your soulmate recognized your true heart was not loud or dramatic. It was something far more meaningful. The more they reflected on the past, the more they realized that every assumption they once held about you had been incomplete. They remembered moments when you chose patience instead of pride, understanding instead of judgment, and hope instead of giving up. Those memories, once overlooked, suddenly carried a completely different meaning. For the first time, they stopped focusing on what others had said about you and started trusting what they had personally experienced. Every genuine smile, every thoughtful conversation, and every act of quiet kindness returned to their mind with remarkable clarity. They realized that your greatest strength had never been something that could be measured or compared. It was the consistency of your character. Even during difficult seasons, you remained true to who you were, and that truth became impossible to ignore. As these realizations continued to grow, something unexpected happened inside them. They began asking themselves questions they had never dared to ask before. What if I misunderstood one of the most important people in my life? What if the person I was searching for had been standing before me all along? Those questions did not bring fear. They brought clarity. Every answer pointed back to you. The more they reflected, the more they admired qualities they had once taken for granted. Your calm spirit became unforgettable. Your honesty became inspiring. Your compassion became something they wished they had appreciated sooner. It was no longer about fleeting emotions. It was about seeing the real person behind every moment, every choice, and every quiet act of goodness. There was one memory they could not stop revisiting. It was a simple moment that seemed ordinary at the time, yet now it felt extraordinary. They remembered the way you encouraged others without expecting recognition. They remembered how you remained respectful even when life became challenging. They remembered that you never tried to become someone else just to gain approval. In that moment, they understood that authenticity is one of the rarest gifts a person can possess. As this understanding deepened, gratitude quietly replaced regret. Instead of dwelling on what had been missed, they became thankful that the truth had finally become clear. They realized that genuine connections are not built on perfection. They are built on trust, respect, patience, and kindness. Those were the very qualities they now saw in you more clearly than ever before. The story was no longer about wondering who you were. That question had already been answered. The story had become about what they would do with this new understanding. Every passing day strengthened their confidence that your presence had brought something valuable into their life. The more they reflected, the more certain they became that some people leave lasting impressions not because they seek attention, but because they quietly make the lives of others better. Perhaps the greatest surprise of all was this: they realized you had never needed to change in order to become worthy. You were already enough. The only thing that changed was their perspective. Sometimes life does not transform the person we are looking at. It transforms the way we finally choose to see them. That realization became the beginning of a completely new chapter. The future no longer felt uncertain. Instead, it felt filled with possibility, gratitude, and hope. They understood that meaningful connections deserve honesty, appreciation, and courage. Those were the gifts they now wished to bring into every conversation and every step forward. And this is where the story becomes even more meaningful. Recognition was only the beginning. Understanding opened the door, but appreciation walked through it. What they discovered next would strengthen everything they now believed about your true character, proving that genuine hearts are always remembered, even after long seasons of silence. The journey is far from over. The next chapter reveals how this new understanding begins to shape their decisions, their words, and the future they once believed was out of reach. Everything changed the moment the truth settled into your soulmate's heart. It was not a passing emotion. It was not a temporary feeling. It was a realization that quietly grew stronger every single day. The more they understood who you truly were, the more they realized that the greatest treasures in life are often the ones people almost overlook. There was a peaceful evening when they found themselves thinking about you without any distraction. No outside opinions. No expectations. Just quiet reflection. In that silence, every memory became brighter. They remembered your words that once seemed simple but now carried incredible meaning. They remembered your patience when situations became difficult. They remembered your ability to encourage others without asking for anything in return. For the first time, they saw the complete picture instead of scattered moments. Then another realization arrived. They understood that you had never tried to impress anyone. You simply chose to remain true to yourself. In a world where so many people wear different masks, your honesty stood out more than ever before. That honesty became impossible to ignore. It became the very reason they could no longer look at you the same way. As these thoughts continued, they asked themselves a question they had never considered before. What if this person has been one of the greatest blessings in my life, and I only recognize it now? That single thought stayed with them. It followed them through ordinary days. It returned during quiet mornings. It appeared in unexpected moments, reminding them that genuine people are not always recognized immediately. Sometimes their value becomes clear only after enough time has passed for wisdom to replace assumption. Your soulmate began noticing something remarkable. Every memory connected to you carried peace. Even moments that once seemed ordinary now felt meaningful. They realized your presence had never brought confusion into their life. It had brought calm, encouragement, and quiet strength. That discovery surprised them more than anything else. For so long, they searched for extraordinary signs while overlooking extraordinary character. Now they finally understood the difference. They stopped comparing you to anyone else. They stopped measuring your worth against impossible expectations. Instead, they simply appreciated you for being exactly who you are. That appreciation continued growing until it became impossible to hide from themselves. One afternoon, while reflecting on everything that had happened, they smiled without even realizing it. It was not because something dramatic had occurred. It was because gratitude had quietly replaced uncertainty. They felt thankful that life had given them another opportunity to understand someone whose heart had remained genuine through every season. They also realized something that completely reshaped their perspective. True connections are never built on perfect circumstances. They are built on trust, on respect, on kindness, on patience, on the quiet confidence that two sincere hearts can recognize each other even after moments of misunderstanding. That truth became the foundation of everything they believed about you. From that day forward, every conversation they imagined with you felt different. Every possibility carried new hope. Every memory reminded them that authenticity is rare, and rare things deserve to be valued. They no longer focused on what they wished had happened sooner. Instead, they became excited about what could still happen ahead. Because sometimes life does not reward perfect timing. Sometimes it rewards honest realization. As this chapter continued unfolding, another beautiful discovery appeared. They realized that your greatest gift was not something you owned. It was something you gave. You gave encouragement without expecting applause. You gave kindness without keeping score. You gave understanding even when life could have made you bitter. Those qualities stayed in their heart long after every conversation ended. And that is why they could no longer ignore the truth. The person they had finally come to recognize was someone whose value could never be measured by appearances or first impressions. Your true identity had always been found in your character. That was the news that changed everything. The more they embraced this realization, the more confident they became that some people enter our lives for a reason far greater than we first imagine. The story is still unfolding. The realization has become certainty. And the next chapter begins with a decision that comes from clarity instead of confusion, a decision that reveals just how deeply this new understanding has transformed the way your soulmate sees your place in their life. The story reaches an even deeper moment now, because recognition always leads to a choice. Once your soulmate truly understood who you were, they could no longer pretend that nothing had changed inside their heart. Every day brought a new layer of understanding. Every quiet moment revealed another reason why your presence had remained unforgettable. They began looking back at the moments that once seemed ordinary. A simple conversation. A kind gesture. A quiet smile. A few encouraging words. None of those memories had faded. Instead, they had become brighter with time. What once appeared small now felt priceless. They realized that the most meaningful people are not always the loudest people. They are often the ones who leave peace behind wherever they go. For the first time, they stopped asking themselves whether this connection was important. They already knew the answer. The real question became this: what should I do now that I finally understand the truth? That question stayed in their heart. Every sunrise reminded them that time had given them a second chance to appreciate someone extraordinary. Every sunset reminded them that genuine people should never be taken for granted. The more they reflected, the stronger their conviction became. Then something beautiful happened. Instead of focusing on what had been misunderstood, they began celebrating everything they had finally discovered. They admired your resilience. They admired your quiet confidence. They admired the way you continued to believe in goodness even when life became uncertain. Those qualities inspired them. Not because they were dramatic, but because they were real. They realized that authenticity creates a lasting impression that nothing else can replace. As their appreciation continued growing, they noticed another surprising truth. Whenever they imagined the future, your presence naturally became part of the picture. They did not force those thoughts. They simply appeared, gently and consistently, until they understood why. It was because your character had earned a place in their heart. Not through perfection. Not through grand promises. But through honesty. Through kindness. Through unwavering consistency. That realization gave them a sense of peace they had never expected. They no longer worried about comparing you with anyone else. Comparison disappeared. Gratitude remained. The connection they once questioned had become one of the clearest truths they had ever experienced. They smiled as they remembered every moment when you quietly encouraged hope without expecting recognition. Those memories became reminders that genuine hearts never lose their value, even if they are not understood immediately. Sometimes life asks people to wait before the full picture becomes visible. Sometimes understanding arrives only after patience has done its work. Your soulmate finally reached that moment. Everything they once overlooked now appeared crystal clear. Everything they once doubted now felt certain. Everything they once questioned now made perfect sense. They understood that your greatest strength was never something the world could measure. It was the quiet way you stayed true to your values. It was the calm confidence that never depended on approval. It was the kindness that continued shining through every season. Those qualities became unforgettable. And that is why this story matters. It reminds every listening heart that genuine character always speaks louder than appearances. It reminds us that truth never loses its power. It simply waits for the right moment to be recognized. Your soulmate has reached that moment. They finally see the person you have always been. They finally recognize the strength that was hidden beneath your quiet spirit. They finally understand that your greatest gift has always been your heart. Now a new chapter is ready to begin. Not a chapter built on assumptions. Not a chapter built on uncertainty. But a chapter built on appreciation, clarity, and renewed hope. The journey has not reached its ending. In many ways, it is only now beginning. Because once someone truly recognizes your worth, every step they take afterward carries a completely different purpose. The next chapter reveals how this realization begins to shape their future in ways they never imagined, proving that some of life's most meaningful moments begin with a single, honest understanding.